As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Proverbs 27:17. Have you ever watched a steel blade being sharpened? It throws off a lot of sparks, and the blade being sharpened heats up quite a bit. It gets red hot. When it's done, it's sharp and quite lethal. But in order to get there, it must withstand the sparks and the fire, just as you will in order to be great. Welcome to Richer Soul, your journey to a more purposeful, intentional, amazing life. Where are you going to go and how are you going to get there? Let's figure that out together. At the core is the financial well-being to be able to do what you want, when you want, how you want. Freedom. Today we're going to talk about a bigger purpose than ourselves. That opening quote is from the Bible, and the key takeaway is not to do the sharpening, but to accept the sharpening so that you too can be great. I'm not going to advocate for a religion, a particular God, or a particular belief system. That is for you to choose. What's more important is that you take the time to investigate, understand, and, as always, be intentional in your choice. Most people don't understand the religious system that they are part of, and many have put zero thought into it because it's what their family did. I challenge you to do otherwise. So how did you end up with your current belief system? Did you actually pick it, or was it handed to you through your family or your spouse? Have you actually read the source material for what you believe, and do you understand it? Do you understand other people's viewpoints and how similar or different it is to yours? I find many religions have very similar viewpoints, and over the years many have morphed and changed. Too often we let man change the meaning of the written religious material, or add in rules and beliefs that were never there. Be careful and make sure that you have it right. So, what's something bigger than you? That's up to you to find something bigger than yourself. Too often people seem to live in a cafeteria plan of religion, where they pick and choose what they want. We are naturally hypocrites, so while we say we believe in X, we do Y. Having a clear worldview, understanding what it is, and most important, living it out in our daily actions is the key. People should be able to know you by what you do, not the usual do what I say, not what I do attitude that seems so persuasive in our society. Regardless of your belief system, I think the outcomes are the same. When you put your time and actions into something bigger than yourself, life seems to provide you with options and solutions to achieve what you want. However, you still have to do the work. What does that mean? It's like the story I heard of this guy who heard a hurricane warning and decided to ride out the storm because it probably wasn't going to be so bad. And after all, God will take care of him. The police came by and evacuated everyone. They told everyone they had to go. He said, "No, I'm good. God will take care of me and keep me safe." As time went on, the hurricane hit and the waters rose and the flood continued to wipe out roads. And pretty soon, the only way to get around was by boat. And rescue people came with a boat and they offered to save the man. He said, "No, I'm good. God will take care of me and keep me safe." The water kept rising, and finally the man was on his roof, and the Coast Guard came with a helicopter to take him to safety. And the man said, "No, I'm good. God will take care of me and keep me safe." Well, you can imagine what happened next. The water swept away the house, and he died. When he arrives in heaven, he's mad at God. "Why didn't you save me?" he asked. God took one look at him and said, "Look, I sent you a warning to leave. I told you that a hurricane was coming. We sent a boat, and I sent a helicopter. What more can I do? You don't listen." We need to sometimes step back and take the advice that the universe is sending to us, and not just sit there waiting for God to save us and do it all for us. There are actually a lot of limiting beliefs around money that come from religion, and many times it's man's view that changes what is actually written. Money is actually one of the most written things, the most written subjects in the Bible. And at the end of the day, we're responsible for doing the work. We just can't rely on others or the universe to pick us. That's a lottery mentality, and it's destined to failure, even if we win the lottery. As you know, most lottery winners are broke, divorced, and unhappy 10 years later. Did you ever notice that when you start to think about something, maybe it's buying a new car like a Mercedes, all of a sudden you start seeing them everywhere? Our subconscious filters out a lot, but it does start letting in the things we want to see. So if you set that bigger dream, all of a sudden things will start opening up and becoming obvious in the same way that when we think of buying that new car, we start seeing them everywhere. Charity and giving back are also bring much more joy than receiving does. People feel much more joy when giving than they do when they receive something. I know it's somewhat counterintuitive, but that's the way life is. I highly advocate you decide upon a plan of how you want to give back. It can be your time or your money, and you have to decide what causes that you want your efforts to go to. Who is it that you want to help? You need to carve out quiet time to be alone, to meditate, to think, to reflect on your life and what you want. This is a very important part of living a richer life. Being connected and quiet is when so much happens magically. You have to find a way that works for you. Maybe it's a long shower or a meditation plan or even a long quiet walk. For some reason for me, the quiet of a good shower allows me the ability to think and imagine. It's no wonder I get so many great ideas in the shower. However, it's really hard to write them down. Then I forget them. What works for one person may not work for another. You've got to figure out what works for you. Try different things and see what's best. There's also a part of human that we've lost touch with as we run around in this crazy world. I think we have much more power than we can imagine. Have you ever heard of the person who in a time of an accident uses superhuman strength to lift a car to save someone? Or someone who has an incurable disease and somehow beats the odds and survives? What powers are out there that we can't even comprehend that make this possible? When you look and see some of the wonders of the world, it's hard to imagine how they could have built them. If you look at the pyramid or the Great Wall of China, they were all built by hand. It just seems impossible to do, and yet they did it. We need to spend more time thinking. Every day, spend a few minutes reading over the material of whatever belief system you choose. Continue to read and reread over the years because as you age, you find more insights in what's written, and the reading impacts you in a very different way. Also, if you can find a tribe of like-minded people with your same worldview, then you can support each other and make each other stronger when life throws you curveballs, and they will come. See, it's not that you're never going to fail or fall, but rather what happens next. Do you stand back up and continue like a child learning to walk who never gives up? Or do you let a few setbacks prevent you from reaching your bigger goals and leave you a life of regrets? Again, this is not an area of expertise for me, but I'm continually learning and trying to improve in this part of my life. What about you? What steps have you taken? You have to figure out your place in this abundantly massive universe and be okay with it. As for me, I like being part of something bigger than myself and having a purpose that transcends time. I think the big thing here is to know your why. Do you know who you really are? And did you purposefully and intentionally get there? Or are you letting other people choose for you? What beliefs are holding you back from the life you want? Are you sharpening yourself and accepting the heat and the sparks to make yourself better? One of my big life goals is to help people become financially abundant because people who have wealth don't need massive government to control and fix all their problems. They don't have to worry about how things are going to get done and how their needs are going to be taken care of, and they don't have to make up massive rules that entrap everybody else into a system. This just allows for so much more freedom and ability. In the 1930s, Napoleon Hill wrote a book called Outwitting the Devil. His family would not allow the book to be published because they felt it was too controversial. It didn't get published till long after his death. The premise of the book is that the devil wins by allowing people to drift. When you don't have a definite sense of purpose, a direction, and a why. He gave plenty of examples of how institutions from schools to churches and so many others put you into the drift. Those who control and use their own mind escape the drift and have success. Michael Hyatt also wrote a book called Living Forward, a proven plan to stop drifting and get the life you want. It explains how to put together a plan to get you out of the drift and be purposeful in your life. By the way, can you do me a favor? Remember to subscribe to the podcast in iTunes so you know when a new episode is released. And if you like what you hear, please leave a review or rating of the show. It helps to get the word out. And lastly, if you know someone who can benefit from this information, please share the podcast with them. It's a great way to build relationships with them and to help people out. Also, if you have a question or comment, or I get something wrong, please email me. It's rocky@richersoul.com. You can also join the mailing list at richersoul.com so you're always in the know of what's going on. Let's wrap up these lessons by going back to the area we first talked about. It's deeply tied to spirituality. What's your purpose? Do you know where you are going, and are you clear? It's so much easier to pick the path when you know the destination. We all get one life to live in this world, and so we should make the best of it. I wish I knew these lessons 30 years ago, as I could have had a much richer life. Your purpose and mental beliefs tie in directly with your health. This is why you hear so often that people who retire and no longer have a purpose in work end up dying quickly. That all comes from the mindsets we have, the stories we tell ourselves unconsciously, the scripts and beliefs we hold that just may not be true. And these are easily manipulated and changed by our psychological hardwiring that was built for a very different time. The world has entered a period of rapid change, and as we hit the inflection point in that compounding curve of change, though, evolution just can't keep up with the speed of that change. Those of us who adapt and change are the ones who will survive and prosper. At the end of the day, to get what you want, you have to use some sort of system to barter for your needs. The easiest is money. Understanding how this tool works and using your finances properly gives you the time and the freedom to live an amazing life. That life is best served with other people, and creating those relationships is important. Being there for your family and making time to enjoy each other. Lastly, having a bigger view of life than yourself brings it all together. Remember, these are not steps. They all flow together. They fit together. And when one area is left out of balance, things don't flow like they should. When all the areas work in harmony, life becomes more amazing than you can imagine. Think about it. You have the most luxurious car, but if one of your tires is flat, you're not going to get very far and the ride won't be comfortable. It's the same with your life. In life, when you build something great, you need to bring the right tools at the right time with the right plan to achieve success. It would be very hard to build a house if you didn't have a set of blueprints, the wrong types of tools, and the people who showed up to build it coming in the wrong order. As for me, I'm still figuring it out, and I will until the day I die. What about you? Do you want freedom? Then start thinking about how all these areas affect your life. Go down the list. Purpose, health, time, finances, overcoming our mindsets, the voices in our head, relationships, family, spirituality. Go ahead and rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 for every area. And for every area that you're not a 10, ask yourself 2 questions. For example, I'm a 6 in this area. Why didn't I pick 5, 1 less? We do this because it's going to create gratitude for you. It's going to show you what's at least good in your life and what you're happy with. The next question is, what do I need to then become a 7? 1 more. Then start taking the steps to move up 1 position. Too often, we don't look at things in small incremental steps, and that makes it hard. Just remember to make sure you dig to find the truth and see if it's real, and not just some shiny object you think will make your life better. No one is more interested in your success and well-being than you are, so you need to make it a priority and make sure you pay attention to it daily. Before we end, a quick story I read that was said to be true. I'm not sure who wrote it and where it comes from, but I do know it came out of the late 60s or early 70s, and it took place in a borough of New York City. The author stated that from the time he was a little boy, he talked about two hardware stores in his old neighborhood. The two stores were right next to each other, and both were run by single men. The two men had nothing in common except for hardware and their hatred for each other. If the first store had a special on hammers, the other would cut his hammer prices lower in an attempt to steal business. If the second store cut his paint price in half, the first store would cut them by 2/3. The two owners would argue constantly, calling each other names, questioning each other's mental capacities, and mocking the other's looks. They were vicious and unrelenting, and their behavior went on like this for 30 or 40 years. The people in the neighborhood tended to side with either one or the other, but never both. They'd shop at one hardware store exclusively because they didn't like the other owner. The customers themselves were defined by which store they shopped at. The author mentioned that both men stayed bachelors their entire lives, and they each lived in an apartment in the back of their stores. He said at the time he never understood why they would live and work next door to someone that they hated so much. Years later, one of the two owners passed away, and his store's contents were sold off. Within a couple of months, the second store owner retired, sold off all his stuff, and moved away. When the two empty stores came up for sale, everyone in the neighborhood learned the motive of the long-standing feud between the two owners. They found that between the apartments in the rear was a common door, which linked the two dwelling units together. It had turned out that the hardware store owners were not bitter enemies, but they were actually brothers. The brothers had been playing the local customers off against each other through their entire feud. It didn't matter which store sold more hammers or more paint. The two brothers made profit regardless. They did a far better job in business pretending to be two feuding competitors than if they had run it as one store, because they instilled fierce loyalties from their customers. The customers were not shopping simply on price, but on allegiance to which one they loved and which one they hated. It didn't matter to the brothers which was loved or which was hated, only that the attention and business of others was focused upon them. Just remember, don't get into fights over worthless alliances, Hillary or Trump, Coke or Pepsi, the Mets or Yankees. They're all there to take your money. They're creating that feud for you so that you focus on them and you hand over your dollars. Know who you are, what you believe in, and live a life that exemplifies what you believe. This is the last episode in the series laying out the foundational plan and areas for a richer, more meaningful life. Episodes going forward will focus more on interviews with experts, coaching calls with people who are willing to share their struggles, and some more podcasts digging deeper into each of these areas. I want to find people who are great in all these different areas and talk to them, to share their knowledge with you. I have many relationships, and so do all of you. We can help each other by sharing those. I'd love to hear your suggestions for who we should interview, and if you can make an introduction, all the better. I already have a few interviews ready to go, and we'll start with that next week. Together, we can go on this journey and figure it out. Throughout my journey, I've found coaches, mentors, and experts who have helped me get where I am today. If I can help you and you're willing to share your coaching session on a podcast, I'd love to have you on the show. Please email me at rocky@richersoul.com. I also offer one-on-one private coaching services to help you create a life plan, overcome hurdles, provide alternative options, and explore how decisions in one area of your life affect another area. I work with people who are already financially successful with their income, but may not be getting all they want in life. You have to be highly motivated to work with me, to want to make changes, and not full of excuses of why you can't get it done. Before we close, I just want to explain my role. It's a dual role. Part one is conductor. Too often, life that we live has so many competing priorities, and we need to help in finding a way to keep all these different areas in harmony. Work takes over, family pulls us in a new direction, or our finances go south. Having someone to help look over all those pieces and find the right balance is the job of the conductor. The second role is Sherpa. If you want to climb Mount Everest, you need a few Sherpas, guides who know the way and can help you to the top. In both of these roles, it's you who has to do the hard work. I'm just here to educate, guide, teach, and show a path. Since I don't know you personally, you need to make sure that this is the right path for you. At the end of the day, you are your toughest opponent. No one will do more to crush you than you will yourself. Remember, we can't control or change other people, but we can change ourselves. Do one thing this week to make yourself better. Learn a new skill, let go of a guilt or remorse, read a book, change your mind, try a new route to work, start exercising. At the end of the day, anything is possible for one who believes. Let's go.